Competitive usage-based billing, like Microsoft Azure provides, is extremely powerful. You don't need to buy hardware, software, and infrastructure up front. You don't need to pay for capacity you don't need. And you get to buy services a la carte, allowing you to provision just what you need. But are you concerned that you don't know exactly what you're going to be charged for your services in Azure? Are you worried that you might accidentally deploy a service or a service at a size that incurs a huge bill? My name is Eric Boyd. I'm an Azure MVP, a Microsoft Regional Director, and the founder of ResponsiveX, where we help customers run workloads and develop applications in Azure. Over the next several minutes, I'm going to show you how you can manage the cost of your solutions in Azure. This will help you avoid being surprised by larger than expected bills and give you confidence that you won't overspend. And before we wrap up, I will show you how you can optimize your Azure costs. You should begin with a plan that estimates your usage patterns and your expected costs for your solutions in Azure. This will give you a benchmark for managing your costs. You should also have a plan for organizing your resources. If you want to learn more about this, I encourage you to check out the video in this series titled Organizing Your Azure Resources. When your Azure environment is well structured, cost management will give you a window into where your money or free credits are being spent in Azure. Cost analysis allows you to slice and dice your costs so that you can view and analyze your costs in the ways that make the most sense for your organization. With cost analysis, you can review historical costs, monitor current costs, and forecast future costs. You often want to answer common questions like, how much have I already spent this month? Based on current usage, how much do I anticipate spending this month? What services are causing my cost to be more than usual? What are my most expensive services? And what are the costs associated to specific individuals, departments, or workloads? Cost analysis helps you do this. And you can be proactive by setting up budgets with alerts so that you can get notified when costs reach certain levels. Back in the Azure portal, I'm going to browse into the cost management and billing area, and then into cost analysis. Using the accumulated cost view, I see a burn-up chart of my Azure costs for the scope, time period, and filters I have selected at the top. Down below, you see additional views breaking down the cost by service, location, and resource group. But this is just the default view. I can customize this using the controls provided by cost analysis. I can change how the chart at the top is grouped, the granularity of the chart, and even the visualization that I want to use. And this is another reason to have a well-organized Azure environment. At the top, I can add filters, and here I can filter by the tags I've associated to my resources. After customizing this view in cost analysis, I can save this view so that I can quickly get back to this customized view again, and others on my team that have access to cost analysis can also see the same view. I can then create a subscription for this saved view to ensure the right people are aware of the cost displayed in that view. I can customize the frequency of this subscription, can add a custom message to the email, and can also include a link to the data in a CSV file. There is a lot of insight you can gain from cost analysis, and I only scratched the surface. I encourage you to spend some time in cost analysis to get the most out of it for your organization. Before we leave the cost management area of the Azure portal, I want to show you how you can also set up budgets. Budgets inform you of your spending in Azure, so you can proactively manage costs. Budgets don't turn off or delete your resources automatically, but you can use budgets to trigger notifications and even other automated processes and actions. I'm going to browse into the Azure budgets from the menu on the left. I want to begin by adding a budget to our entire Azure subscription. You'll see that our scope is set to the subscription, and we don't have any additional filters, so this will create a budget for the overall subscription. I'll name it. In this case, I want to create a monthly budget, so I'll select monthly. I'll set when I want the budget to begin calculating. I'll also set when I want this budget to expire and stop calculating. And finally, I'll set the budget amount. You'll notice on the right, I get some guidance with a view of my historical spend and a suggested budget based on that historical spend. I'll use that guidance to set my budget amount. On the next screen, I can set up alerts, and I can configure multiple alerts for a budget. I'll configure my first alert for when the actual spend reaches 25% of my budget. Now I can configure an action group, which determines what to do when a budget alert triggers. In addition to sending an email, I can use action groups to send SMS messages, make voice calls, and send push notifications to the Azure mobile app that's available on iOS and Android. An action group can also do things like send an event to an event hub, integrate with an ITSM, and trigger an Azure Automation Runbook, Azure Function, Logic App, or Webhook. And I can configure different action groups for different budget alerts and thresholds. I'll select an action group that sends a push notification in the Azure app. I'll also add the email addresses for the people and/or distribution lists that should receive these budget alerts and create the budget. I'm going to add one more budget so you can see that in addition to budgets on the overall subscription spend, we can set up budgets on a more granular level. By clicking on Change Scope, I can drill down into the subscription and select a specific resource group to apply the budget to. I can also click on Add Filter to add filters for the resource properties, including our tags. If you have tags for departments, cost centers, or workloads, you can then add budgets at that level of granularity. The combination of a well-organized Azure environment and Azure budgets provide a way to manage costs with accountability across the individuals and departments of your organization. In addition to budgets, Azure Cost Allocation provides the ability to break down and distribute costs of shared resources. You can identify, allocate, and split the costs in flexible ways so that you can report on it in cost analysis with a more appropriate distribution to allow for more accurate and precise internal chargebacks. Accountability is still an iterative process that requires bidirectional communication within your organization, as well as guidance and coaching. And it's not an easy task, but Azure provides you with tools to support you in better managing your organization's costs. While using cost analysis, you might observe costs that you believe could be less with a little optimization. One of the immediate ways you can save is to cut waste. You should remove resources that aren't being used, but ensure they aren't being used first. Sometimes resources like virtual machines aren't used all the time, and you can stop and deallocate these resources when they aren't being used to save money. Resources might not be sized appropriately, and you might be wasting money having over-provisioned resources. Resources might be periodically over-provisioned, and you might be able to save money by taking advantage of auto-scale to adjust the size or number of instances you have running. In the previous video of this series on estimating the cost of your Azure solutions, I showed several offers that you might be able to take advantage of to save money. One of those is Azure Reservations, where you can commit to 1 or 3-year plans for Azure services and save up to 72% from the pay-as-you-go pricing. To help identify these cost-saving opportunities in your own subscriptions, I recommend starting with Azure Advisor. Azure Advisor is essentially your own personalized cloud consultant, providing you guidance and recommendations to help you optimize costs, increase security, reliability, and overall operations of your Azure environment and services. You can find Azure Advisor in the Azure portal just like any other Azure service. On the dashboard, you'll see the major categories with a summary of your recommendations. I'm going to click into cost, and here we will see recommendations for reducing our Azure spend targeted at specific resources in our Azure environment. These recommendations include optimizing over-provisioned and underutilized resources, as well as taking advantage of Azure Reservations for consistently running workloads. From here, you can take action to optimize your Azure costs. In the next video of this series, I will show you how you can begin creating infrastructure in Azure using the virtual machine service. Before I wrap up, I'd like to invite you to join me at our weekly Azure Live Q&A session. During the 30-minute session, I will host an interactive and live Q&A to answer your Azure questions.